that whatever I see is smiling at me. Love is who I am. Hello there, beloved Ascension pioneers, and welcome to today's Ascension update. Actually, it will be a video on a deeper self-mastery in terms of how are we becoming the new energy masters. So there's a lot to talk about in this subject, because when we say the word new, here I've been writing down on my board, what is the new really? What do we even think about when we say in the New Age circles and the spiritual circles and communities, when we say, oh, the new, even I'm talking about the new constantly. And I still feel that there's a lot of the concepts that we wish to link to the word and the concept new in itself, as we want to somehow understand, okay, but what does it really mean? Because a lot of us, as we're moving into this new transitional energy, because when we say new, it's new from our perspective of what the human capacity has been able to relate to at this point in time, and before not so much for eons in time, and yet from the cosmic awareness where everything always is, and all energy always just is, the basic energy principle, well, all energy always is. We're just shifting it, we're shifting the perspectives, and therefore the energy currents appear to be changing and always in movement. And from that perspective, that already is. So here I've been drawing this perspective of the layers, almost like when we have the layers of the onion or the layers of the tree, when we kind of cut it in half. What we see is that basically there's always different levels and layers to what our perception is perceiving. So what we talk about as the new is the level where we haven't yet been to before as a collective of beings, as a race of beings. So I know in the spiritual circles there's a lot of guruism and going within and the now movement, and talking about consciousness, presence, being beyond the mind, just our essence, which is almost like the first stage that we've been developing before we can start tuning into the higher consciousness of all life and creation. So as well as there's beings who are still developing that and walking into purely feeling themselves as presence, liberating themselves from these false perceptions and identities, these distortions we've been creating about ourselves. And simultaneously, there's also a movement when we are moving into greater cosmic spaces of who we truly are. And those of us who are Ascension pioneers, we know what we're talking about. We know what this is about. And in today's video, I really want to go even deeper in terms of how are we feeling the changes in this energy. What I've been shown is that there's not a lot of us who've actually crossed the threshold to be able to embody this, to feel this, the first stages of this new energy mastery, but the numbers will be increasing because we're actually putting these templates, we're reverberating those energy fields outwardly, and people are getting more and more susceptible to that. So stay true again to you, where you are, where's your timeline, where's your focus. But through your earthly experiences, as you go through as a cosmic master, once you start to really allow yourselves the art of the human refinement through the human collective experience, which comes down and fuses through your own unique experience, then you will see that it's actually these experiences that act as gateways for us to learn how to almost like shape, our creations. Because for eons and eons of time, humans haven't even been conscious creators. They've been following something that they've perceived. They have their own will. But basically, they've been just maybe given certain things. They've been adopting things from their soul lineages, their human incarnational lineages. They've been going through patterns that were in their family. Let's say someone adopts a business through their family. They just come into it because it's just in their family. Or just things that were very much programmed into us from the society, from the collective at large, belief patterns we've had. And as we've been plugging out of the matrix, we've actually been mastering the old system, because you can't really move into this new energy before you master the old template. That's basic law of ascension in creation, is master where you are in your levels before you can move the next step up in your advancement. So just like we have schools in spirit, Earth also is basically, it has these different perceptions of these earthly school and training. So again, this layering of the onion applies to everything. It's basically the different spaces and dimensions that always coexist. They're always there present, but because Earth is moving into her new transitional cycle, pardon me, a lot of humans are moving there as well because they're wanting, as a part of their soul agreement, desire, and purpose, to see new life on that new template. They're moving along with those currents of energy. And therefore, because a lot of beings have not been there before for eons and eons of time, they've just been going through cycles of this reincarnation and karma, they haven't known anything else, but they're ready now to shift that. We're here, those of us who know and understand how this new energy template works, because we've been masters of it, not in this realm, but we know because we come from these higher templates already, from different levels, different star systems, and we're here to show the way. How are we basically existing, coexisting, co-partnering up with this energy, not just saying, oh, something's changing, okay, I'll just passively wait as this transition era is complete. It doesn't go like that, so we are either consciously participating with that change, evolving with it and through it, or not. So like I've said here before, this, in a way, and I've written down here actually this last, but a couple of us who are moving here first, and then those following who are creating this en masse movement for the first time after eons and eons of time, we're the first to actually do this. But it's not new. It's only new from our human perspective because it's a new on a certain level of the human experience as it is right here and now. So there's a lot of beings who talk about this new energy mastery, the new movement. And each one kind of has their own specific, almost like their own specific approach, But what's really important is for us to, through our own human experience, beyond the information we receive from the outside, that we develop this innate understanding through our own template of the experience when we move into the new energy mastery. So through my own examples in my life and my school of training, the school of hard knocks of life on earth, I've been going through many experiences and relationships and situations that basically, from times being, a lot of them maybe felt, why do we even have to go through this? The human mind doesn't always understand, but on a bigger picture, we know that this is our training ground for what we need to work with so that we will develop the understanding on the human level as well. Because I always say this to you, that even though you might have the greatest awareness and capacity as a being, as a star being, when you come to Earth, you will need to utilize this just the same way as everyone else. You will need to go through the same experiences in a different way, because for me personally, I've been going through them very fast. I've always been very hyper and very quick in terms of how fast I transcend things, but this is just my nature of the soul and it's unique to me. So what is important is how innately we are connected to us, getting this as a root experience, not just information we got on the outside, but what is right for us and how do we recognize that we are actually within this new energy. So I've shared this with you, that in my experiences, every single time, as I've been going deeper into it, it wasn't about the people that were there present, acting as mirrors or situations. It was about the energy being played out. And the more I understood that, the more I saw how I'm actually having a relationship, not just with myself, but the energy is what we use as conscious co-creators. So how do we work with this energy means how well we know how to create. But we can't create on this new earth template with the knowledge we've been having before. So I forgot to write that down, but I've had it in my mind before starting this video, is the first rule. Because when we will feel we've entered this new energy space, and I'm going to talk about this here, but first I'm going to give you a little preview and introduction before we start. But the first rule is we will feel different. It will be completely unknown. We will know we've arrived somewhere, and yet, every point of arrival is just a new space to expand. It's not something like a final destination. That doesn't exist. It's not like in the movie, final destination. And the thing is, we'll just feel it. We feel like sometimes, because we're going to maybe want to explore or use our previous knowledge and understanding. For example, we've created a story, how it was so far, but somehow it doesn't work anymore. It doesn't work in our application with the people, with relationships, with situations. It just feels weird. Why are things different now? Because none of the applications that we used to know before work. All of a sudden it's different, it's new. Well, this is one of the signs. So the first rule, before I start even talking about this video, is everything we've been learning so far. From mastering the old template, the first rule, once you master the old template, Once you become a master of the old template, which means you've known how to dissolve through the grid, you've withdrew from the matrix, you've created a completely new self-absorbed reality. This doesn't mean you're self-absorbed. It means you have worked through the law of absorption. So you have melded your essence into your living reality. That's what I mean when I say that, okay? So you've mastered this. And how do you know you've come to the culmination point of this mastery? Like I've said, it will be like this blank slate, clean energy. And for the past 2 videos, if you can see me, I'm wearing white, not just because I resonate with the white lady archetype and the white elven queen, but it's because there's been this constant message that there's been a rewrite, a simplification of the energy, a synthesis of all that we've gathered and known. It was familiar to us. And remember, again, we are in a 9 universal year, which brings this contemplation, completion, culmination together for us to really feel what all we've learned in this cycle. Not just this 9-year cycle, but our entire lifetime, and then go back, all the soul lineage. And the deeper back your soul will show you can go at, the more this unification you're doing on greater levels. Not just this lifetime, not just the DNA lineage clearing, not just the soul family even, it's beyond. It's going to become galactic. So it's in steps. So don't try to mentally assess where you are. It will come to you, because a lot of people ask me these questions like, how do I know I'm here? How do I get to this phase? I'll give you one example in my own life just recently that showed me how humble we are. We always need to be, because there's something so simple that has to run its course out. Whatever you do, whatever you're trying to do, you won't do it through control. Okay, maybe I tell you this story now before we start, but I need to tell you the basic rule is when we will know that we've arrived to this culmination period, we'll have to forget everything we've learned so far. I know this will be kind of like the hardest aspect right now with the new energy mastery. Then you actually means that in each moment, not just you're in the now, okay, I'm in the now, okay, I feel. We're all feeling beings, we're not focused to future or past. We're only here and now. But what does this really mean? The new. It's the ability to, whatever you've learned, whatever you're constantly, even in your deepest spiritual quests, that you can let it go, that you are always in constant transcendence. So the new energy mastery is about constant state of transcendence, which for you in the past, if you felt slower energy moving slower, now it's like, what is this? It feels faster. It's not faster. It's just that you're more in your neutralized vortex zero field polarity, which is the neutralized polarity of unity field, when your masculine feminine forces are really conjoined together and merged in a synthesized whole. But in this space, you will be able to truly feel that time doesn't exist in the same way anymore. And we're going to talk about some of the rules of the new game, which aren't really rules anymore. But every layering of the onion has its own specific principles. And those souls who've been moving through this understanding before, they know, and that's why they're able to be the way showers of the new. And I've been writing down here this simple fact. It's those of us who've been going through this before. We're here to show the way, so to make an easier transition for those making this. Making this is a life choice, but not just a life soul choice. It's a soul choice, okay? It's happening on much greater levels, because you're not just completing, people think, this earthly incarnational cycles. When you do that, you're going to be moved up to greater levels, okay? This is just how it is, and the nature of evolution of the soul and transcendence. So I'm going to tell you this one story that really humbled me. So this weekend, just before the weekend began, I was drinking my regular smoothie, and I got this tiny little piece, such a sharp piece of, because I had wild berry smoothie, I had this piece stuck in my throat. And it was so sharp, kind of this tiny raspberry or something part. And it didn't want to go out. It was so painful. It was like each time I swallowed, I felt like this sharp pain, like a knife, tiny little knife, scratching on my throat. It was so hard. And the instant message was, this was about some painful feelings need to be expressed coming through me, because a lot of us are doing this greater work, not just for our family lineage and all that, but we're doing creation template work. So sometimes these things happen and feelings need to come out, and you'll receive on the outside mirrors that will trigger these feelings to come out. whatever that is, loss, rejection, abandonment, these things that we just, need to face and confront with love, not denial and avoiding them and saying, oh, it doesn't matter, right? So when this happened, I got instant information. It was like, don't even bother. It's going to come out when these feelings will come out. And this is how you'll know. It's almost like your indication that you'll know when this is complete. And a part of me resisted that because we are all humans sometimes. And this human part was like, oh, I need to get this out. At a certain point, you should see me. I was on my mountain beach, shoving down these far particles, like these branches or something. And it just ended up irritating my throat even more. And I knew the guidance. And at the same time, there was a part of me that was agitated. So this is what it feels like to still be in the old template. It's still a parallel experience. It's not yet fully unified. It's still like you're feeling your bigger picture self, your higher self, the aware self knows, and you trust that knowing, and simultaneously a part of you that feels still a little bit subtracted from that is resisting, and it's creating its own experience. So it's saying, I'm the human part. I want to have it this way. And we're allowing that because this merge happens through a love process, which means embracing the whatever kind of experience the human self wants to have and experience. So it's not like forced and you're saying, no, stop now, I'm done having this experience. Just get over with it, just do your own thing, the human part. So we're doing this through love this time. We're not doing any more through denial of aspects of the self and being only, like I said, only vertical, only horizontal. These were games playing out in the cosmic scenario for so long, and now we're doing this transition through love, through ease, through grace, through self-compassion and understanding. So funny thing, right? At the end of the weekend, because I had this pointy thing in my throat for over 50 hours, it was more than 2 days. And then these feelings were released, and all of a sudden, I didn't even have to try. I just did a little, it came out like this, and I touched it. It was so sharp. It was really so sharp, very edgy, and I couldn't believe that tiny thing, like a tiny thing. It was so tiny. But that tiny thing created so much pain. And this is the thing, that sometimes the tiniest things we push aside and we say they don't matter, but they do nonetheless. Even if we feel on the level of our bigger self, this doesn't matter. This is just a tiny human part. Why would I even consider that as important? I'm fine. I don't need to feel that. It's stupid. It's silly to feel that way. But in truth, every minute aspect, even the tiniest aspect, if it's still creating something like a story, it will want to be expressed. So do you see how everything in my example needed to play out in such a beautiful way? And because I have the awareness and wisdom to understand this, even the tiny fragment that was still kind of, creating its own story and was agitated at a certain point, I almost started crying because I was so in agony because the thing didn't want to come out. And I knew at the same time, I knew it won't come out until I do the processing, and then it was just effortless. So what we need to know about this new energy is that we are basically, when we're doing the fusion, the merge, the only thing that we'll be left with is the understanding of flow. No more past, future, projection, stories. This is all outdated because on this level we're moving into now, it's a new vibrational space, and therefore we're creating a new wave. Different tools we'll need to develop. I'm talking about inner tools. Of course, they become external extensions, but it's how it is. It begins with the inner understanding and the tools that are developed through that understanding. So what takes place is that with this new, we're completely guided by our life force. So everything becomes a simple flow, interacting with life. Feeling into consciously responding, feeling into consciously responding, loving, 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 all becomes of love, the art of love. Stories are just distorted, and they're just like naturally dissolving. And the more these stories would dissolve, it just, life becomes a natural flow. And we're knowing when the energy is potent, these are our gateways to enter into, to co-create with. When the energy feels depleted, lost, gone, things are, sometimes even shown as signs. We need to know our exit strategy. And the moment we understand this, we're living in this new, which basically is the art of feeling through our life force. And it's not even new from the perspective of our eternal being, because on each level of our greater self, we each know this already. It's just that we're remembering how to have a physical experience of that, not just as a soul, but to have a physical body move into a new, of course, transcendental state in our body, and yet have this feeling experience. And to know we did it in terms of physical ascension, that it was a physical act of that love. So let me tell you now that the old versus new template and what it looks like, right? So I talked about the onion layering already, but the old versus new, it's almost like, it's about layers, right? As I've already said. And sometimes we can't force these layers to occur because a lot of times we might wish to be already somewhere with our experience, or we want to create a different relationship, or we want to move out of something. It feels uncomfortable, and yet we're still asked to do the work. Otherwise, it wouldn't feel uncomfortable. So with the new, being in the new, how we know is we're still going to have challenges. We're still going to go through our experiences, but the way we will see them, it will be completely different because it's us who've actually changed. We've changed along with the vibration of the changing reality because we need to fuse our changing awareness with that which is changing externally. It has to be a merged experience for us to have a physical, extended outwardly expression and experience. So in the old, we've had more of a, we had some, curves. They were more like, they kind of like were as sequences or subsequences of these events that made us feel a certain way, and there were like these intervals of us having certain experiences and expanding through that. And sometimes we felt like we're going up, other times we felt like going down, like the heartbeat to show like like this. And although this is well and fine, there's still an aspect that if we even see it as these intervals, it's still perceived through the notion of time, right? I'm not saying that time where we're moving now will no longer exist, but the way we perceive time will change so much that it will feel like it doesn't exist in the same way, if you know what I mean. So the new template is more like this, right? It's like this spiraling notion of constant expansion and moving as one with life. So it's like imagining your heart as the cosmic center that sends out these spirals that get just bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger until the point that you feel like engulfed in this presence of divine love. So we cannot do this merge in completeness if we don't do the masculine feminine polarity merge. So we're each doing this in our own timeline. We can't skip those steps. And a lot of people have been perceiving this as the twin flame path, the twin flame union merge, whatever they've been calling it. I didn't necessarily call it like this myself because in those terms, like I've shared with you before, there also came out into being a lot of different distortions because the focus was lost what was really the work, which was us. It's always been about us. It was always about us becoming conscious energy masters, and it was not the focus about choosing one person and then our whole focus is about that person, or being in the kind of situation where we feel we finally have it all, right? It was about the fusion of feminine and masculine polarities, each voice of the divine equation being heard in mutual reciprocation, reciprocity and understanding, right? So with this process, we might have had relationships that kept coming back, but the aspect of the energy within that dynamics is what kept coming back until we got it right, until we really mastered ourselves. How are we really dealing with this? So let me tell you one of my own examples, because I like to give these examples to make you aware that I also have to go through the same processing in my own way and very fast usually, but I still go, along the same lines as all of us, because I need to have the trial and error feeling experience in the human aspect of me as well. So what is taking place for me was, one example was the communication between the male and female. So on the greater level, this is expressed as divine feminine and masculine. In between, there's many distortions, distorted masculine, distorted feminine, and so on and so forth. So what took place was that a lot of the times when a certain energy dynamics between the relationship between me and another was, let's say, it was complete, it always felt like it wasn't fully complete, or the other one left, or someone left, or they were hiding. If something was too uncomfortable, they didn't want to acknowledge the truth, something didn't want to be fully accepted or acknowledged. And remember, everything is about the mirroring. So once you fully acknowledge what's really happening, and with each of those relationships, whether it's one of them or different ones, but basically it's about that relation you have with your inner master, how much more you are in that dynamics of understanding what's really taking place. So through those relationships, we're seeing those things and they're coming more and more to the surface. And up until the point where we can fully see it as all comes back to us, we're continuously going to repeat the exercise, because if we're not fully in the self, it all comes back to us. We're not going to be fully in that new and the new energy mastery, which is our next step to master and develop. So for me, recently there was this development that for the first time in my life, I had, when there was a falling out, when it was this feeling like, something is completing, the relationship is transitioning, there was this sense of two aspects still wanting to be heard and expressed in a peaceful way, through that peaceful resolution, through that peaceful understanding, mutual agreement that we're in different paths, this is how it is, but we can still see, like I said, merging of the bridges. This is what we were doing, a lot of us. And with that, there was this opening of how the female and male have been interacting, and how much this was distorted, and how much there was a lot of this miscommunication for eons and eons of time, and how the feminine voice, the masculine voice were always kind of at war with each other, because we were at war with each other. Humans have been creating this because they were negating aspects of themselves for so long. So as we unify these aspects into a very simplistic equation, which is 1 + 1 is 3, which is divine feminine and masculine, the point of singularity is reached through triangulation. So you imagine the two create the third energy, but in between is the 0 point. It's that zero field that is the point of neutrality when the two forces truly polarize in unity. So what this means is that when we see things as not as I had this with someone, I didn't have it with that one, doesn't mean that we're going to have this coming into resolution now with every single person that was there in our lives, because there were just aspects of us wanting to come back to us. So if you want to know more about that work and understanding, I have a beautiful course called the Cosmic Beloved Course, which talks exactly about that. How are we becoming our own master in terms of becoming our own beloved through those conscious mirrors, so we become as one in our enlightened partnership, and enlightened partnerships that we will be co-creating as these conscious beings. And with this in mind, what it means is that you only need one. You only need one breakthrough. You only need one resolution, because it has always been about you. So if you have a feeling it's something that was always avoiding you all your life, it was usually created around a certain story we've had. And if it wasn't karmic, because for a lot of those of us, especially who've come here from levels where we haven't come to the earth point at this time because of karma, we've come from the outside forces and joined in the party. We still kind of participated with that karma through our genetic lineage, and we still had this work to do. Or it was, for example, something we've had in our childhood. So it was all the same thing. And it's just a matter of how much awareness we had to break through those things. And once we did, let's now move to the new energy mastery, right? So we've already talked about that the new actually means something you can't describe, something you can't put always the same meaning to and the same reference to, something you can't kind of go back and kind of see through the bag of your past experience and wanting to apply it now. But it's like this constant living in the leap of faith energy, which is you're always ready to jump. And this means taking the kind of action that, if it will be felt like action on your part, but it begins with choice. We don't just do actions without, first knowing what we're committing to, and that is the art of choosing through aware self. And as we do so, what takes place is that our understanding of the self grows, right? And for those of us who've been doing this, we've almost felt like this feeling that we can't create what we used to know before. So we kind of have to have a new field. And this is where this transition is taking us now, is learning to also, in our culmination, to unlearn, to be willing to unlearn. So as this is complete, what's happening, and we're going to move to this point, is these stories, the stories that were created, these distortions, like you've had the energies of rejection, abandonment, fear of loss. And usually they were there because a story was created. Like, for example, when you were little, your parents didn't give you attention and you wanted their time. But someone recently gave me this example, so I'm using it because I can't think of anything else. And they give you presents instead, for example, but you really want their time. So this aspect, because it's kind of how you approach your first association with the other gender or with the same gender, because we have our parents as our first associations of the masculine, feminine energies. And we continue to recreate those things in a reality especially in intimate partnerships, and constantly blaming or ascribing it to another rather than, bringing it back to the self. And we can't move to this new energy template before we're fully ready and willing to do so. So that is why I said only a small percentage is still there at that point where we're really feeling this effect of our full-on life force flow, because that flow will still not be fully intact until we still have those projections somehow and filters onto others, and blaming them for our own experiences because they're actually just mirrors to show us what's, that story. So when these stories are dissolved, we'll see that the blockages we've kind of perceived, they were never there. The story of this old world is we're blocked. So you can't create something, you're blocked. Especially when people get so deep into it that they create this perception that there's other beings that are against them, or the forces have conspired against them, or the universe is blocking them at large. There is no such thing. But sometimes there is a lack of something in your life because you need to learn something. You need to learn to see things differently. And a lot of people are so blind, they're just seeing that as a block. And the more focused you become on that, the less awareness is there on what's really taking place in the bigger picture. So let's talk now about something called the art of manifestation, which I don't call like that at all, because manifestation is an old world word, in the old world. I'm calling it the art of co-creation. It's because the co-creation means to partner up with life as life presents itself to us, through us. And manifestation, why so many times in the old template, even in the spiritual circles, we've been talking about the art of manifesting as, you want something, manifest it, make it happen, be conscious manifester of what you want to, create a vision board, feel it, plug all your senses. But if something is not on your path, because within your soul there's no agreement to that, there's nothing there for you at all, that will just become an empty, it's almost like focus goes somewhere where it's not in true alignment with the richness of your soul. So sometimes the results are not there. You feel you're in lack, you feel you're abandoned, you feel you don't have abundance, and what do? I need to manifest something else now, or I need to manifest differently. I need to develop tools, techniques, ways of how to even, do things, how to meditate, how to breathe properly, how to do yoga properly, all these things. And we create even more distortion of who we truly are as authentic presence, as an authentic being. So my point here of this new energy mastery is, first, what is the new is the releasing of all of that. So you can't fully be your true higher vibratory being, your light body merge coming into your form, making love or merging with your human body template, if you really still hold on to all of these things, even what you perceive about needing to manifest. There's nothing needing to manifest in the new energy, because I would like to quote Saint Germain from Jeffrey Hoppe here, because he created this great video. And in that video, they say, the new comes to you. The new comes to you. I really love that saying, because when I've been going deeper into understanding of how my life force works, I've been seeing it, how it was translating. For example, it jumps energy. There's a door opening and it will maybe come through a person. I'm with them for that time being of our exchange. The energy goes away. I will feel it. I will literally even feel it in my body. Especially, for the women here, I'm talking to the female public now, we have the womb, and the power of our womb is so wise and all-knowing that it just has this innate tendency to feel what is right and what it doesn't want in its space, and it's just so deeply felt. And that's why we can feel through our tantric life force exchange what's really the flow and what's not. And we all kind of do, maybe some stronger than others because they don't have these perceptions about blockages anymore. So that's why they're not blocked. They're going with the feeling. But it's more like that some people are not following what they feel. They're feeling it, but they're not making a partner, partnering with yourself kind of choices. They're not being congruent with what's really taking place, with the messages, what they are. So what this means is that when the energy is known to you, how you feel it as an authentic presence of you, well, of course, you got to know how you are as an authentic being first. A lot of people in the New Age say, oh, we're nothing, and, at the same time, we're everything. And we forget about the most important, crucial part as a unique aspect of who you are. How will you know the whole if you can't even feel into yourself? How? How will you be everything? How can you be? I know for a fact that I can only be myself and my uniqueness of my essence. and that I can respect all life, that I know I'm in union with all life, that I've always been, always will be, but I cannot be all of life. People always say this, I'm everything. Yes, because source is all things and is in all things, but it's not the same as now I can be in all things. You know, Poluna will now become that flower there in my room. I can join my consciousness with the flower, but that doesn't mean I will become the flower itself in this very moment. So that's the difference. And when we understand this, we're no longer having these distorted perceptions of what really is to be divine, what is to be of source, you know. And with this life force mastery, we've been learning how to just walk through the gateways that open to us, how to exit when they no longer feel fruitful and abundant, because a lot of times we stick with it for so long and we feel blocked in that energy. We say we're blocked, we're just not seeing the bigger picture. Nothing's there for us anymore. Okay? And we're not willing to see because we lack that trust of, like I said, living in constant leap of faith, which is not seeing that unknown, not seeing what will come next, because you don't know, because you're in the new now. But you trust it because your feeling side of life, your life force continuously gives you signs of reassurance and tells you. It speaks to you in ways that are beyond just when you say the voice of my heart. It's the voice of your everything, your overall presence. It's just there. Sometimes people ask me, how do you know these things about yourself? How do you know what you feel? Well, it takes a lot of mastery, not just here in the human, but on the soul level as well, to know and to trust that knowing. And even me, a lot of times in my life, my biggest challenges were when I received something. Sometimes it was so out of the proportion that I couldn't believe I could know this. And yet when I've mistrusted, when I didn't have that faith, I've always got the signs. Look, do you see? But it was as it was. You just didn't fully trust that. Because sometimes we're afraid to trust that we can know so much because we feel so small, and yet we're not. We're grand in our uniqueness. You know, we don't have to play small in our uniqueness. We're unique and yet we're grand in that. So the new energy mastery, we need to embrace all those things. So what are some of the things? You know, the new energy is timeless and it's non-linear, it's non-local. What does this mean? I'm going to tell you, if in the past, this is one example, when you've had a certain creation, I'm not going to say manifestation because it's your life force, it's been creating that all the time for you. You've always been just fusing it with your human template. That's what we were doing. So if in the past, sometimes it felt that there's a lag of time, lagging behind something of what you were creating or seeding, and then when it comes, or you had a feeling you have to wait for someone. Let's say you really wanted the relationship and you had to wait for it. Or you felt there are certain parts of you want to experience on the outside and you felt there was a lack of time, you know, behind. It's because that old grid template was based on time and things did come in a way that there was kind of lagging behind of, you know, the true creation coming into being physically. So people were saying, when will this finally happen for me? When will this finally shift? When? People sometimes say that the energy needs to be above a certain percentage that it can be felt on a collective. But for you personally, you also need to have that percentage of your energy shifted in the new timeline so you can have that experience within yourself. Note what I'm saying, because it does begin with you. You cannot experience something, even if it's there in the outside, if you haven't aligned yourself with that, right? So let's say you can have a bunch of people outside here in my building, and I'm here standing in the room, and I'm saying, I'm so alone, lonely, and I'm looking outside my window, all these people out there, and I never make the move to join them, to approach them, to kind of mingle, right? Because I'm having the perception that I'm alone, and I'm here in my room. This is my viewpoint. It's where I'm looking from the distance at the bigger picture. So the question is whether I want that, whether I want to be in that feeling, and I like to be that withdrawn or not. And if not, I will join the party, right? So it's so simple. And because of this timeless nature of the new energy, things, the more you master that life force flow, feel like they no longer have that backup time, right? It's like I've noticed in my own self, if sometimes there was a fear that you would, by leaving a certain creation behind because it no longer resonates or it served its purpose. That's how it is, and the continuation of life and creation. You had a fear like, oh, if I leave that, maybe I'll be without for a long time because you've had that experience in the past. So you didn't want to leave it. People stayed with what's safe and resonant in what was there and familiar. But now I've seen that the more you're in this trusting state, the more you're brave and courageously making those choices from that state of new now, leap of faith, then what happens is the energy will shift so fast. It's your life force constantly shows you that this is you because you've embodied the right amount, the right quotient of your true self essence in the physical, that it always comes back to you right instantly, right? So let's say there's a partnership, there's a relationship, and it no longer bears fruits, and you don't want to leave it, right? But by that I'm saying the way it was, right? It doesn't mean like now you need to leave it completely. It's just the way it used to be. It no longer resonates with you, but you're afraid to make that move forward, so you don't do it. You're kind of waiting. You're waiting if something else will come along, and that's what people usually make the mistakes, because that waiting again is from a time-based and linear-based perspective, right? You're here, and yet you're waiting for something here to happen on the top of the mountain. While here in the new template, like I said, it's like this, right? It's like spirals, it's curves. It's a constant expansion from your true divine nature. So what this means is that the moment this time constraint is surrendered, you're moving deeper into your true timeless nature, the nature of you always having that union with you. And because of that union with you, there's things happening on the outside too. And this rhymes, right? So let's say I've been noticing myself that the lag behind um, was getting, tinier and tinier, until I had the feeling of instant jump of that energy in the physical, which is of course my direct mirror from the within, my beloved within. It instantly jumped, and the energy went from this situation immediately to that one. What I needed to learn was just to observe and feel with all of my being, with this spiraling nature, into that creation and see where the potential is now, fearlessly, consciously, and ever so present. It's so simple. So this now happens in cycles, the new energies in cycles, because of these merges we've been having with our light body form, which does have this function like this. It's not like this, it's not fragmented. These were fragments, right? We've talked about a lot about the soul fragmentation and then for the soul unification. So when this happens, this energy directly shifts into this. And it's so simple. And it's a process. But when you trust yourself, your timeline, the relationships that are brought forth for your integration and your conscious awareness, you will more easily be with the flow as what is necessary. Because a lot of the times we're here, right? But I want to be here. And again, I have this perception of wanting to skip steps and jump steps. And when we've been doing that in the past, what happened is, of course, the planets go retrograde, it's the same thing. We have to redo, rethink, re-strategize that, which we kind of left behind because we took this jump into a few steps forward. It's not the wrong approach. It just means that anything that was not addressed, it felt like from the perspective of soul's evolution, it wasn't fully explored, and it needs to be for this to be a continuation, right? And if it was like skipping something, there will still remain this aspect of us that maybe still something needs to be communicated, still expressed, lived out, whatever it is. And that's what we were doing. So the important thing, as I said before, the dissolution of these stories, like the story would be, I always get abandoned by men, or men always leave me, or women are never fully listening to me. I'm talking about relationships now, of course, our biggest mirrors. Or people always get afraid when I get too open or too deep or too intimate. But is there an aspect of us when we open up, we feel, I don't want to be fully seen. I've opened up and yet I don't feel fully safe. I would rather just escape. And that comes outside of us, like an external manifestation. The moment when we realize that all aspects, like I've said, are for us, they're brought forth on the outside as an expression of our internal dynamics, is we start to finally see life as a game, not just a game like haha, it's just a game, but a play. It's like a beautiful divine symphony that we're participating in, but not just that, we're co-creating with it. So this conscious co-creation is not the same as manifestation, because it actually requires only one thing, which is effortless flow. And this effortless flow means that for manifestation, we always have to use these rituals and tools and dance the right way, at the right moon, at the right lunation, at the right position of the stars. Don't do these things when Mercury is retrograde. Don't do these things, or it's bad to do that when the stars are in this kind of alignment or triangulation or squaring or whatever kind of position. And we've always been in a little bit of that fear of how the outside will affect us on the inside, instead of knowing that there's only partnership. with the elements, with the planets, with the stars, with all of it, that it's just a life force. And life force, like I've said, moves like this. You know, I have beautiful light activations on, and opening up to your spirit self, being with the Holy Spirit. This is what it is. It's life force. That's what Holy Spirit is, and how it flows uniquely through you. Or I have beautiful spirit messages on my page that can help you just to activate these greater dormant levels of you that already know this, but they're just consciously through those words and how they're spoken through the language of the spirit, how they're bringing that up from ourselves. So basically, yeah, we are, the mind is not attached to the stories anymore, because if you remember in the past and you look back on our nature as humans, is the mind or the ego was just needed. We judge it now so much, but what's happening is that's just not needed the way it used to be anymore. It's almost like you used to drink alcohol because you thought it was necessary for you to have fun. Now you become your own fun and you say, thank you, alcohol, I don't need you anymore, but thanks for all the fun days. It's almost like this, right? So you're saying mind was, or the ego, which was that kind of part that needed to keep us safe because there was a lot of darkness in the ages of the humankind. So there was a lot of survival of the fittest, that survival consciousness. But because now we're moving into this soul union, the mind needs to catch up with our soul, because the soul is taking the lead. And as it does, it's not taking the lead in terms of, mind, you're bad, go away. But it's saying, come on, come on, come join the ride. It will be more effortless. It will be painless. It will just be. And what's happening now, that when we have sometimes these relationship communications or miscommunications or falling outs, is our mind will still sometimes try to assess things through the old story, or have the mirror of the old, try to bring up that old stuff. But if we're willing to go deep enough and take a deeper look, what's really happening is this really true? Are we already so advanced? It's just that the mind is catching up with what the soul, through our heart language, already knows. And what's happening is the mind is not being excluded. The mind is being included, but more like in the way it no longer needs to fight. It no longer needs to be our external authority that will protect us or shield us from something harm and evil or whatever. It's just that the soul companionship within us begins to more flourish. There's more trust. And the mind, even though sometimes it still has that voice, it's becoming more integrated with the whole experience. So, yeah, we're the first to do this. But it's new, and yet it's not, in a way. A lot of us already know this, and that's why we've come forth here to share with the rest of the standing collective of the human kind of how it is to live in this new energy space. And I think this is just the beginning. This is when the first stage for a lot of us feels complete. It is complete. You will know it, because these situations that, like I've said before, you've never had that conversation, never had that closure, but now all of a sudden it happens for you. It's like, it's a message. It's an archetype for that final unification of your inner masculine feminine polarities really merging now. Both voices and all of these aspects of you are now ready to unify, to listen to each other in a communion, not one wanting to rule out the other or be predominant, but to be in synthesis and unison. So when you will feel this, it will be very much obvious to you. It will come through the external confirmation as well. You will learn to be humble, like I was with that joking experience, and the life force will more and more show you that everything is presented to you, for you, through you. No effort needed, no hardship to manifest, just that new comes to you. And I love that quote for Saint Germain, so I'll keep it. So thank you for watching. For those of you who love my work and feel that you benefit a lot from it, that it helps your soul expansion, I really encourage you to support energetically. So there's a donation page as well on all of my pages. And thank you for those of you who are already doing so. I appreciate and honor that so very much, because some people like to confuse free and unconditional. The work I do, selfless service, is unconditional, but it's not free, because in terms of, my energy goes, all this input, all this contemplation, all this work that I do. So thank you for understanding that, and if you're so inclined, I really appreciate it. So also thank you for those of you sharing your feedback with me, how my sharing affects you. I do love to hear about that, because we are moving through this together, and I always tell you that I need physical feedback so I can see how my impact, what I can do to improve, whatever, so that helps me as well to be even better in my services and the way I am and what I provide from my own heart. So thank you again, as always, from my heart space. So much love, wisdom, and power. I love you all so very much. And as always, bliss out. Enjoy. Bye-bye for now. Bye.
Welcome into